Welcome into this week's episode of the Hawkeye Tailgate Report. I am Luke Myers, and Hawkeye fans, we finished on a good note to end the year. It's a little sour, considering the way our offense looked against Ohio State and Nebraska and the way it looked against Minnesota, Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin. The list goes on and on. But a very impressive win to end the season, and it's always good to beat Nebraska. Extending the state borders a little bit to the west after this weekend. Just as impressive as the Ohio State game, this weekend's game was. Everything was well. Aside from our punting game in general, everything else looked flawless. Kicking game, offense, defense, run, pass, it did not matter. Hankins got the start at corner this weekend for the Hawkeyes. Matt Hankins did, and he did a very good job managing to... He got beat up a little in the first half, but he figured it out and slowed things down a little bit. And we saw what Noah Fant is capable of when he catches the ball, and Wadley is going to be greatly missed. So we will get into the scoring summary here. In the first quarter, Morgan Jr. for Nebraska reeled in a one-handed catch from 14 yards out to make it 7-0. Wadley would answer with a 20-yard touchdown run. He had a very big day to tie it up at 7. Morgan would get on the board again in the second quarter with a 28-yard touchdown catch to push the lead to 7. And just before half, Noah Fant would find the end zone for the first time on the day, knotted up at 14. And I felt pretty good at half of that score, 14-14. If you told me that's what it would have been, I would have been absolutely happy with the way our offense had been performing. Third quarter, just a belligerent beating of Nebraska, and it was a beautiful thing to see. Wadley got on the board with a 1-yard touchdown run. Butler would get on the board with a 12-yard touchdown run, and Wadley would do it again with a 29-yard touchdown run before Fant caught a 68-yard touchdown pass that looked like it could have gone 6 the other way, but defender just missed it, and at the end of the third quarter, Iowa led 42-14. In the fourth, a couple of third and fourth string running backs got in, and Torrin Young got a 3-yard touchdown run, and Kelly Martin, 5-yard out, from 5 yards out, got a touchdown, and that made it 56-14, and that is where the score would sit. So in 2 Big Ten games this year, Iowa put up 55 and 56, but all the other ones that kind of laid stinkers this year, but we'll take it. The Hawks finished the season at 7-5 and 4-5 in Big Ten play. A down year, but we'll be back. A lot of good young players out there. Some Iowa stats for you. 304 yards rushing in this game. They controlled the line of scrimmage on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. Wadley had 159 yards, 3 touchdowns. As I mentioned, Kelly Martin, Young, and Butler all scored. Stanley had 192 yards and 2 touchdowns. No interceptions once again for him. Fant had 3 receptions, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. Josie Jewell, the beloved Iowa linebacker, 8 tackles, 3 pass breakups, going out on top with an interception. Neiman and Welch also had an interception in this game. And Geno Stone in the secondary did a very good job in this game, had 8 tackles, but he was hitting hard. Reminded me a little of Jordan Lomax when he played for the Hawks. It was just a very good game to watch and pretty much exciting all the way throughout, and it was pretty flawless football by the Hawkeyes. Nebraska just couldn't hang with us in the second half. They end up firing their coach. I believe it was the next day. Sucks for Mike Riley, but absolutely great for the Hawkeyes, finishing the year at 7-5. So there was no tailgating this week in Iowa City. So as we transition to the basketball season here, we're going to be talking to people associated with the Hawkeye basketball program, whether it be men or women's. This week we got an interview with former Hawkeye basketball manager Brandon Morris. This is going to be a 2-part interview. Part 1 is this week, so stay tuned. Here are a couple ads from our sponsors before we get to the interview. Cobra Lanes in Farley, Iowa is now open for the year. Come out and bowl at the 8-Lane Family Fun Center. Want a new bowling ball? Visit the pro shop and have it drilled by owner Al Heiberger. Want some dinner? Order some food from the kitchen and eat it in their dining area. Want to have a good time? Visit their bar for happy hour from 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Roll on down to Cobra Lanes in Farley for a great time. As a small business owner, you know tax season is not nearly as exciting as Iowa game day. With Peak Rich Partners, you won't have to worry about the stress of tax season. Peakridge Partners takes the stress of tax and accounting off of your shoulders, allowing you to focus your time on maximizing your business's potential. Our cloud-based bookkeeping system will allow you to stay on top of your tax and accounting needs. When you choose Peakridge Partners, you have the ability to access all your bookkeeping information at any time, on any mobile device, allowing you to communicate with us 24/7. Choose Peakridge Partners. We save small businesses time and money. Go Hawks! All right, next up on the Hawkeye Tailgate Report is CEO of StudentUnionSports.com, one of the CEOs, Brandon Morris. He also used to be a basketball manager for the Iowa Hawkeye men's basketball team. How are you doing, Brandon?
Doing well. A little scratchy in the voice here after a weekend in Auburn watching the Tigers take down Georgia, but other than that, doing well.
Yeah, that was nuts. I was a big Georgia advocate all year. You knew that, but let me down big, almost as bad as the Hawkeyes this weekend.
Yeah, it's a tough break for the Hawks. Didn't get to watch much of the game, obviously, but little inconsistency from a young team on the road. Not all that surprising, but a little disheartening after the Ohio State game.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's predictable what happened this weekend, but Hawkeye teams in the past have tended to let down their fans week after a very large game. But
yeah, and I think you don't want to discredit Wisconsin's defense, real deal. They would be very much a contender this year if they didn't have Uncle Rico at quarterback. But their run game's top 10, and their defense is. All right, it's unbelievable.
Before we get into the questions, undefeated Wisconsin does not miss the college football playoff, do they?
Never. We will never in our lifetime see a Power 5 undefeated team not make the playoff. It's just there's no way you can justify it. It's hard to go undefeated. But Clemson's a very good team, and they tripped up against a very, at best, average Syracuse team. It's hard to, no matter how weak your schedule is, it's hard to week in, week out go undefeated. And an undefeated Wisconsin team would have beaten, by the end of the year, potentially an 8-win Iowa team, a 9-win Northwestern team, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, and a tougher than their record shows Michigan team. So if they go undefeated, there's no question they're probably depending on how Miami ends out, but at least a 3 seed, if not a 2 seed.
All right, we'll get into some of the basketball questions now for the Hawkeyes. So you were a manager with them from what years?
I was in school from 2006 to 2011. My first year, I was kind of an intern, not necessarily doing the manager thing. But then after that, my last 4 years, I was officially a manager.
All right, so you were there for the lost lick lighter years, as I like to refer to them as. It was only 3 years, but boy, it seemed like it was at least 10 years of losing in Iowa City.
I actually hit the very rare 3-coach combo. I was there for Coach Alford's last year, 3 years of Coach Licklider, and then I was there for Fran's first year. So statistically speaking, the worst 5-year stretch in the program.
We won't put that on you, though. But it's a lot of people's dreams to be associated with the Iowa Hawkeye basketball or football team, or any team for that matter. What was it like for you when you were doing that?
It was a great experience. Wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world. I played basketball and football growing up. I would go to Iowa, all the way through high school. I'd go to Iowa games, football and basketball. We were basically season ticket holders for football. Loved Iowa City. Knew I wanted to go to a bigger school, and sadly did not have the athletic talent to simply take me there. So, got the chance to talk with my coach, my head basketball coach, about it, and he knew one of the managers at the time there. And so that's kind of how I got connected within it. And it was a dream come true. You're still very much a part of the program. You're at practice every day. You're traveling with the program. I got to go all over the world. Basically all the Big Ten schools at the time. I got to go to Vegas, the Virgin Islands. I got to go on the European trip to Italy and Greece. It was an incredible experience. And, as someone who grew up in Iowa as an Iowa fan, it's tough to ask for a better college experience.
All right, so you've done a lot with the Hawkeyes. What's been your favorite memory over those years?
From a basketball standpoint, I would have to say it was my senior day. I graduated with Jared Cole was the other memorable senior from the team. We were playing Purdue, who was, I believe, top 10 at the time. They had E'Twaun Moore, Juwan Johnson, and
Robbie Hummel,
Lewis Jackson. Hummel was on the team, but he was hurt that year.
All right.
Yeah, really good team. We got waxed by them at Purdue earlier that year, and we ended up winning the game, stormed the court. I mean, it couldn't have been a better way to, kind of tie off the career there a little bit, and just really kind of showed. You started to see glimpses of what Coach McCaffrey and that staff were going to be able to do, and just couldn't have happened to a better guy too. Jared Cole. Just a guy that he committed to Coach Alford, played 3 years under Licklider, and had 1 year under Fran, and a great ambassador of the program, just a great guy in general. And he just toughed it out. He never quit, and he's one of the guys that kind of helped Fran kind of keep everyone in eyes on the prize and start to build that thing from what was essentially scratch at that point.
All right, so could you tell the difference between the atmosphere around Licklider and McCaffrey?
I honest to God think Coach Licklider and his staff get a bit of a bad reputation. Obviously, they'll tell you 1,000 times it didn't happen the way they wanted to. They caught a couple bad breaks with some guys transferring for various reasons, but it's just tough to say. It maybe had ran its course there by the time they got let go. You have to really capture that momentum the first year on the job or year or two on the job, and if you never quite get that going and the fan base never quite buys in, it's tough. It's tough. I think there were some challenges they weren't aware with in Iowa City at the time. Our facilities were really probably bottom half of the Big Ten, if not further down. At the time, we didn't have a practice facility. And if there was a volleyball game or something, women's basketball or something going on during our practice time, we had to go to off campus or to a very poor gym. And so it was, those kind of challenges never really got addressed, I would say, until, Fran's, even Coach McCaffrey's second or third year. And once that started to roll, you could, now we have one of the better practice facilities in the Big Ten. And really, there was a commitment that needed to happen on that side of things that I think was part of the struggles and part of the reason Coach Licklider and his staff weren't able to get it done. But, it's really good guys, bright basketball guys. I mean, if you look at it, one of their assistants right now is the head coach at Butler now, Laval Jordan, another great guy. For whatever reason, it just didn't work out. I mean, but there were glimpses of what they were trying to do as well. That the Michigan State game when we beat them when they were top 5, I want to say.
Number 6.
And we were number 6. We were competitive on a lot of games. Just never really quite got that consistency, and the recruiting never quite was there. I mean, we were maybe getting close there towards the end. If you look at who would have been their final recruiting class, it would have been Roy Marble, who was obviously a very good Big Ten player, Ben Brust, who ended up at Wisconsin, who was also a very good Big Ten player, and then I can't remember the kid's name off my top of my head, but he ended up going to Florida instead. So I don't know if it would have necessarily happened either way, but they might have been a little closer than people thought. But we probably want to talk about Fran on this one. Fran in general just brings a great energy to practice every day. And you saw it right away with him. He refuses to accept anything but your best effort or kind of, you saw the chair slam at Michigan State. We were in the Virgin Islands the first year. We're in this gym. It's the size of a high school gym. And so players, coaches, fans could all hear everything Fran's saying, and he was just getting after the guys. And just a passionate guy, refuses to let, he's not going to sit back there when you're there getting beat by 30 at Michigan State and just kind of sit there and like, oh, we'll get him next time. He continues to coach him up. He continues to ask for effort. And the guys were responding to that. I think it took some of the holdovers a little while to kind of get used to it, because obviously it's a very different dynamic as far as, how they kind of act within practice. But I think eventually they just all kind of bought in and realized that despite him yelling and maybe really getting after them, that it was, for their own good and that the results would come from that.
All right. So we'll just move along here. Now, Iowa and Iowa State managers play in a basketball game usually the couple days before their matchup for the Cy-Hawk. Were you ever involved with that?
We never played Iowa State. We did we were kind of on the edge of starting that. We did play a lot of games. We got to play we played at Ohio State. Who else did we? Michigan. We played Michigan State. They beat our ass. They played a lot like their actual basketball team. Very fast, very aggressive. But we kind of started that, I want to say, a little bit, because the guys before me never did. And so we enjoyed it. It was always fun. You get to meet some of the guys. Occasionally, maybe you trade promo T-shirts with them, and so it was always pretty cool. And then they occasionally get a tour of the locker room, and I think it's awesome what's happened with it. Billis tweets out results now. Jay Billis does. A guy named Kevin Pauga, I think he's Jobo at Michigan State now. He was a manager when we were managers. And he he's the one that started the Final Four for them, keeps stats, keeps all that stuff. And I just think it's awesome. You hear me talk a lot within our student union group. Anytime you get network, you never know when you get a chance to run into those people, and especially if you want to get into basketball and continue to coach or kind of go up go down that career path. More people you can know and get to meet it's just a great opportunity. And so we always had a pretty good time with those. Yeah, but we never played Iowa State, so at least not that I can remember.
That was part one of the Brandon Morris interview. Once again, he's a former Iowa Hawkeye basketball manager. He was there for 1 year of Alford, 3 years of Licklider, and 1 year of Fran McCaffrey. So we get some good insight into the Iowa basketball program there. But that's the end of the football season. As I mentioned a couple times already, Hawkeyes finished 7-5 overall and 4-5 in the Big Ten. The bowl selection process will be after the conference championship games, so stay tuned for that. Look for the Hawkeyes to go Pinstripe Bowl, Music City Bowl, those would be in New York City at Yankee Stadium, and in Nashville, Tennessee, which that'd be a pretty cool landing spot. But other than that, it's kind of a crapshoot where we're going to land. Nobody can really predict. One way I'll get excited is if we get a rematch with Iowa State in a bowl game. A whole month of hate month is just something I would absolutely love to have happen here. Can't wait to rip on some Cyclones if it happens. But look at some of the other sports here for the Hawkeyes as they get their season started. The Iowa men's basketball team takes on Virginia Tech tonight in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. They've really been struggling on the Cayman Islands. They went 1-2 against some pretty poor competition. See if they can turn it around. They got Penn State on Saturday. Women's basketball, Florida State on Wednesday. Florida State's a top 25 team. Wednesday at 7 is that game. Samford on Sunday at 2. And then Iowa wrestling will host on Friday night. We'll host Illinois on Friday night in Carver at 7. So make sure you stay up to date with those Hawkeye sports as well. We'll keep you updated with them. But that wraps up this week's episode of the Hawkeye Tailgate Report. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And as always, go Hawks.